And we are back. Was that Twin Peaks, Michael?
I don't know who. No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. Okay.
I don't have any idea who it was. We'll find out, though.
There is a couple of there are a couple other things just you should know about. The thing we announced last week that's happening today at Rogers Park Library at 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. called "Who is Stealing Our Education?" Put together by Occupy Rogers Park, a very good activist bunch. And the other thing today is meditations on activism with a free screening, The Invisible War, which is basically a documentary highlighting the epidemic of rape within the U.S. military. That's being shown at the Thousand Waves at 1220 West Belmont Avenue. Women who are doing a lot of good work on assault and against violence.
Well, we would like to welcome our friend, our neighbor, Ami Tyler Herson. Good morning to you.
Ami.
Good morning.
Hi, neighbor.
Hi, neighbor.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Good. You hung a beautiful show last week that is got to mean something. It's got to be special for you to sit in this room and see your mom's work on one side and your dad's work on the other. How does that feel?
It is very special. The Heartland's been a part of my life my whole life, and one of the last shows my father had was actually here.
Yeah.
And so I'm honored, and it's a pleasure to share their work with the community, and thank you so much for the invitation to do so.
Well, you know, I got to come over to your house this summer for a little barbecue, and I actually had been in your house a number of times, but I had never, you know, it was always so filled with your folks' artwork, and you know, it was just like going into a storage room for art. And you gave me a tour of the house, and I saw some pieces. I actually have this iPhone. I took pictures, and there was just some beautiful things that I had never seen before.
Yeah.
And I said, let's do another show at the Heartland, because the last show your dad did, I think, was in May of 2010. And actually, if you go to the 5/20/2010 edition of the Live from the Heartland show at youtube.com/Heartland Media, you could see your dad being interviewed, and others can too.
Well, that was the show of all Al's paintings about the Japanese garden, right? The
Osaka Garden,
Osaka
behind the Museum of Science and Industry.
Right, right behind the
Well,
museum.
tell us a little bit about both your parents and how they became artists, and what it was like for you growing up with two artists putting out their stuff.
Well, you know, both my parents actually met at the Southside Community Arts Center. My mom grew up in Evanston. My dad grew up in the Woodlawn neighborhood. And both went to the Art Institute, and they enjoyed and shared a very long life together in the arts and nurturing the arts and each other and me, their only protege. And it was a wonderful, loving, amazing experience, and I am extremely fortunate to have had such amazing parents. Both of them spent a number of years not only working and living in the Chicago area, but my mother, as an art historian, lectured extensively throughout the Midwest, but in particular Chicago, Northwestern, and Loyola, and the University of Illinois on African American art and art history. And my father was the staff artist for the city of Evanston for 40 years, and was
I didn't realize that.
Involved in that organization, and they still are extremely fond of him. I actually went down there to the Cultural Center the other day with my husband and saw my dad's old office and hung out with some of his previous co-workers.
Wow.
Because people stay there a long time.
Yeah.
And they all talk very fondly.
That was Evanston?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they all talk very fondly of the work that he contributed back in the day when everything was done by hand and not by computer.
Right.
And all the architectural renderings were done by hand, and all the signs were illustrated by hand. He illustrated their city plan for years and did elaborate drawings depicting Evanston. He also illustrated all of the books that Evanston published on the architecture of Evanston. Wow. And the historic nature of the architecture. So he did the architectural renderings in those books.
Did he ever get into computer?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not a bit.
Not one bit.
Yeah.
He did everything by hand until the day he left. And since has been replaced by a computer, which is the way of technology. But
Well, he was still studying art till almost the day he died. Because I've told this story before. It was a year or two after your mom had passed away, and I saw him with his art briefcase walking down the street, and I said, "Hey, Al, how you doing?" He said, "Good morning." I said, "Where are you going?" He says, "I'm going to the art class." I said, "You are an artist. What are you going to the art class for?" He says, "The models."
Yeah, he, continued to draw. Both of them continued to make work up until for as long as physically possible.
Right.
When my husband and I moved into the house to sort through my parents' belongings and my family history, the numbers of works are
amazing,
staggering.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, what did you discover going through your parents' stuff that you did not know about? Or wonderful moments that you had uncovering?
So many things. I mean, but primarily it was when you grow up around art your whole life. It's not that you don't take it for granted. You appreciate it, but you're so accustomed to seeing it. And I went to Otis Parsons School of Design, and I also am an artist. My husband's an artist, so you kind of take
some of it for granted.
Some of it for granted.
Sure.
The amount of work that people really can put out. And my dad in particular was so prolific. He never stopped drawing, not for a minute. And I remember him sitting at the table watching a game and drawing all the time, constantly. And to find just portfolio after portfolio full of work. My mom was a little bit more selective. If she didn't like the way something was coming out, she would destroy it. And so there's less work of hers, but there's still several hundred pieces, but there's less than my father, who kept everything, and they both doodled on anything. So it was amazing to see the diversity in style and the transition from work that they did when they were younger up until the end of their lives, and to see the things that carried through and the things that were changed and dropped out.
The way.
But my dad in particular, his drawing skill from high school was amazing. I mean, so impressive. I
have a drawing your father made.
Yeah.
He actually gave me a copy of a painting. It was just like a print of something I love, the CTA bus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Which I'm glad he got to sell it, because I wasn't going to buy it. I couldn't afford it. But your dad, one of the things I read about your dad, I found it online, was he talked about his interest in all kind of things in art, but he did talk about his kind of goal to glorify the African American. Now his work includes a lot of it. Like here we have a picture of Malcolm X, we have a picture of Dr. King, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas your mom's stuff is much more abstract. And painting.
Well, the stuff we have is that characteristic of her work? You've hung?
It is. My mom's preferred medium was monoprints, which is essentially painting with ink. So you only get one print.
Right.
And sort of painting in the reverse. You paint on the glass and then you print off of the glass.
Right.
So the first layer you put down is the first layer that shows once
Artists
you
are
print
just crazy people, aren't they?
Yeah.
Look at all that work. She paints all that work on a piece of glass, and she gets one print out of it, and that's it.
And that's it.
Oh,
and
artists blow my mind.
She preferred the landscape. She really enjoyed abstract work and modern abstract work, and really that was her forte, where my father's work is more figurative, a little bit more documentary.
Yeah.
And he tried to highlight history a little bit more, but he also comes from more of a technical drafting background. So it kind of makes sense for his work to be a little bit more structured.
Prolific is the word for Al Tyler.
Yeah.
And now both of them spent some time in Toluca in Mexico.
They both did their graduate work in Mexico, and they were there for 2 years outside of Mexico City. and my dad went to
At
study.
a good time to be outside of Mexico City.
Yeah, in the 60s, and my dad went specifically to study fresco murals and to follow in the Diego Rivera tradition. And my mother went to do print work, and she worked with Elizabeth Catlett, who had lived there since the 60s or 50s, and is an artist and a printmaker. And they both spent those 2 years honing their trades and learning, being influenced by that culture. And they've had a very strong influence of the Mexican art community and the influences of those artists, and greatly valued the relationships they made with those artists in that time frame.
Your parents represent kind of the best that Chicago offers in terms of citizens who take it upon themselves to not only enlarge the world right around them, but understand that they have to enlarge themselves regularly in order to carry that off. So you're sharing of the Mexico sojourn, but they were also part of what you mentioned previously, the Southside Art Center, which is an extremely important community center down there.
Your dad's murals are on the walls at the Rogers Park Public Library.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to check out some work and just walk in and get a good book at the same time, check out the Rogers Park Library.
Well, and of course the main thing right now to check out, and we're soon going to have the list of titles up with the show, is the show that adorns the walls of the Heartland Café right now.
And we're going to have a reception for you and honoring your parents 3 to 6 on Sunday the 24th of February. So you all come out, see the pictures before then. But that will be a good time. Ami will be here. Her husband Richard will be here, and they'll be talking about your folks' art. Now I got to ask you one more question.
Okay.
You're an artist yourself. What kind of work are you doing, and when do we get to see your artwork?
I do primarily pastels and acrylic paintings. Ironically, the last group of work that I have been working on, although it's been kind of scattered because of moving here and relocating and all of that business, have been butterflies, sort of abstract butterflies. When my mother passed away, my husband and my mother-in-law gave me some framed butterflies, and then some odd thing went out into the universe, and friends and neighbors and loved ones started giving me framed butterflies, and as sort of a tribute to my mother. And we've amassed quite a collection of framed rare butterflies, and I have started to paint them, and they remind me of sort of the things that my mother saw in her work, and the colors and the light within her work. So I've sort of been doing that as kind of a tribute to her in my own way.
Can't avoid the fact of metamorphosis as being part of the butterfly thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was very big on that and on transformation.
Well, we encourage everybody to come over to the Heartland, check out this beautiful artwork. I guess some of your dad's work is also at the DuSable Museum.
Yes, and actually a piece of my dad's was just acquired by the Brooklyn Museum in a collection, a very important collection of African American artwork that was purchased by them about 30 days ago. And then my mother's work is part of an installation that has been done at the 52nd Street Viaduct, honoring the women of Sapphire and Crystal, which is a Chicago-based women's art group that my mom was one of the founding members of. And that was opened up late summer, that installation. So there's lots of places to go and see their work. They're in the DuSable collection and the Art Institute, the School of the Art Institute's collection as well, and they're both distinguished alumni from the School of the Art Institute.
Well, we're honored to have you on. We hope everyone will come out on the 24th, 3 to 6, and look at the art and meet you. And you're a wonderful neighbor. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you
to
for
my
sharing.
good neighbors.
We're going to take a short